Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today, unfortunately, we need to reflect on that horror show of a 3-0 defeat to Bournemouth. Embarrassing, humiliating. I can't believe what we actually had to watch yesterday in that game. And what we need to figure out today is who is to blame. Is it Erik ten Hag? It might be. Or is it the players? Is it the players not really executing certain plans? What is the problem? We're going to take a look at the shape, quick sneak peek there. Let's just get straight into it. Because not everything about the game was absolutely horrendous. For example, United did often persist with trying to play the ball out from the back, which I think is a good thing. I think it's something we've asked for quite a lot this season. And I felt that we saw it in this game. United were trying to play the ball out from the back. The two centre-backs would split either side of the keeper like this. But Bournemouth were really, really aggressive in the way that they pressed. So Solanke and Kluivert would form a front two. But we would also then get one of the midfielders coming all the way up on Amrabat as well. And of course, we then got the two wingers are going to push high on the Manchester United fullbacks, and United genuinely found it quite difficult to work the ball from the back. Of course, like I said, with Bournemouth going man-to-man in this way, it is difficult to find the spaces. Could we have at times dropped Scott McTominay deeper to receive the ball? Yes, I think so. I think we should have done that. I think either the manager should recognise that he needs to drop deeper, or the player himself should see the space and drop into that area. However, it didn't really happen, and United did find it hard to get out from the back. And of course, that was the first goal. Bruno Fernandes, terrible play out from the back. It's awful, Bournemouth score. At times, United did do a bit of a better job. Of course, with someone like Onana in goal, you are going to have spells where you do play out. If Bournemouth aren't spot on with the way that they're pressing, Onana will find a hole. Luke Shaw will find a hole in your side. So let's say Onana just takes a little bit longer on the ball, draws the player in. Now he can go round the forward to Shaw, and United can play out from the back. So it wasn't that United never played out from the back, but there was a concern there. Now, I was very aware that this could be a case in this game because Bournemouth are a good pressing outfit under their new manager. However, one thing that I hoped United would kind of have as a get-out-of-jail-free card almost was Scott McTominay. Something that I was pointing out before the game was that the average height of the Bournemouth midfield was about 5'8". Scott McTominay, of course, over 6'3". So something that I was looking at coming into the game was maybe if we do get pressed and we can't get out from the back, we could just go long over the top to Scott McTominay, who can win the aerial duel, and then we can play from there. I was kind of looking towards that, like I said, as a get-out-jail-free card when we couldn't get out of the press. But that didn't happen because Bournemouth, again, was so aggressive in the way that they pressed. So let's say Bruno Fernandes is going to drift this side and take Cook with him. You would assume that Scott McTominay now has, free reign of the pitch. He's got a lot of space to receive the ball. Not the case, because Senesi was stepping out all the way from centre-back and being super aggressive. And of course, he's a centre-back. He's got that extra bit of height about him. And he could deal with Scott McTominay in the air. And I think the reason that Bournemouth felt that they could do that was because they were comfortable leaving this back three against United's front three. And the reason for that is because Garnacho and Anthony don't want to run in behind the defence. They want to get the ball and dribble. So there wasn't a threat really going this way. But also, Martial's exactly the same. Martial didn't want to go this way either. And he also isn't someone to really hold the ball up. It's not really his game. Which meant that all the United players want to come towards the ball. So Bournemouth could just keep stealing extra yards, and this allowed them to be really aggressive in the way that they pressed. Now, just to confirm, this isn't me saying Martial played badly, for example. It's just I don't think he was the right profile for this game. He actually done some stuff in the first half quite well. But I feel like Rasmus Højlund, of course, was rotated due to load. I feel like he would have had a better shot in this game because I don't think Bournemouth would have been so aggressive in their press. But it did happen, and United did struggle to get out from the back.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order.
I think when you play a team like Bournemouth, who are super good in the press, it is almost acceptable at times to struggle with that. It's not a massive criticism of Manchester United. However, what isn't acceptable is the general structure we saw from the side. Or perhaps the lack of structure, the lack of idea in the side. I couldn't really tell you what the game plan was from Manchester United because it was non-existent. United had about 70% possession at times in the game. And I couldn't really tell you what the structure was. One part of the structure was Sophie and Amrabat dropping deep between the centre-backs. We saw this constantly, particularly in the first half. He was always dropping into this position. Of course, that allows Maguire and Luke Shaw to split slightly wider. Reguilón and Dalot were then pushed incredibly high up the pitch like this, sometimes underlapping, sometimes overlapping the winger. But they're pushed incredibly high. That's okay, although I'm not too happy with it. The problem we've now got here, though, is that yes, Maguire can play through the first phase because we outnumber the Bournemouth players in this area, but there's just no midfield again. And I think when you have a structural issue of that, there's no one in midfield, there's big gaps in here. A certain amount of the time you can go, it's because the players aren't intelligent enough. Bruno Fernandes should recognise this space and drop into this position. McTominay should recognise this space and drop into this position, which at times they did. But I think when we're seeing this similar problem game after game after game after game, when it's always the same problem, you do have to look towards the manager. And I'm a big fan of Erik Ten Hag. I'm someone who vouched for him coming into the club before most people really knew who he was. I'm a big fan of Erik Ten Hag. But to have another game with the same problem of a gaping midfield, even in this new structure, the holes are still there, and it just leads to a side which doesn't progress the ball that effectively through the centre of the pitch. At all. Now, it weren't helped, I should add, by some horrific individual performances. Luke Shaw was terrible. Really good last couple of weeks since his return from injury, and I'll allow him a little bit just because he has recently returned from injury, but it was a bad performance. Reguilón, I thought his first touch was often poor. Scott McTominay, was he playing? Bruno Fernandes, poor. Diogo Dalot, awful decisions on the ball. Absolutely awful. But again, I have a more of a structural issue rather than an individual issue. Because the problem is, right, if you're a good side, you can make bad decisions in the final third. United did get the ball into the final third with the quality of Garnacho carrying the ball forward. Bruno Fernandes, we know, is always able to break a press with a pass. The same for Sofiane Amrabat. Maguire can carry the ball forward. Luke Shaw can pass into Martial. United did have ways that they can get the ball forward. And the problem from here, for me, was more of an individual issue rather than the manager. Decisions in the final third were just really bad. Dalot has the choice to cut it across to Rasmus Højlund. Very similar to the goal that Bournemouth scored. Instead he shoots. We concede 40 seconds later to go 2-0 down. That's unacceptable. Garnacho's quality in the final third with his end product. I think he done really well to get into these positions. His dribbling was good. The crossing just isn't good enough, particularly on his left foot. He's bad crossing with his left foot. That is a problem which needs to be worked on. We also had the issue that Martial tactically was often dropping deep and linking the play, so that when the ball did go wide, Reguilón's going to fly around the outside, and he's going to stand across up into the box. The threats in there were kind of Bruno Fernandes and maybe Antony, which they're not exactly target men to aim for in the box. Now you might think, surely we had Scott McTominay box crashing, because that's where he's scoring all his goals at the moment. You'd have thought, but not really. Scott McTominay's performance was really, really interesting, is probably the best word to use. I couldn't really tell you what his role in the side was. Now, is that due to bad leadership and bad coaching and bad direction, perhaps from Ten Hag, or is it a lack of intelligence of an individual player? What we saw a lot of in this game, though, was Bruno Fernandes is the midfielder kind of dropping here to help out, but then also the one here in the final third. McTominay felt like a passenger to the game. He wasn't dropping deep and linking the play. You know, he wasn't regularly providing support in these areas. But he also wasn't getting in the box for crosses. But he also wasn't, like, creating from deep. He eventually started getting to the box from set pieces and stuff. He did have more shots. But in general, if you go back and watch the first half back, the amount of times that Reguilón crossed the ball and just no one was in there, he was crossing to no one, it's a problem. The other problem that even when United did have a midfielder was that they still only had one. And it would often be perhaps Scott McTominay or Bruno Fernandes dropping deep to be the solo pivot. And the big issue with this performance, and this is the main point I wanted to get to, the big issue of this performance is not only does this shape make it a little bit difficult for United to progress the ball, right? Because with players pushing too high, too early, someone like Bruno Fernandes, when he does rotate in, he has a lack of options in front of him that he can pass to. Because Bournemouth are a good side. Bournemouth are a good pressing side. They're in brilliant form at the moment. The form team in the Premier League. They're a good side, they make life difficult for you. But the issue I've got is that every time United lose the ball, it's almost definitely going to end up in the United final third. The defensive third. And that's just not acceptable. When Manchester City make bad decisions in the final third, which they often do, you know, they have a team of humans, they'll often lose the ball in the final third, but they have a good rest defence shape, most of the time. Which means that when they lose the ball and the ball comes back out here, they win it, they get back on the front foot and they sustain the next attack. For United, because we've got this extra player forward like this, when we lose the ball, Bournemouth are able to make it stick. And it's not just Bournemouth, it's every team. Even Chelsea the other day, who were absolutely horrendous and we outplayed them, even Chelsea had this threat, where when United attack and lose the ball, they're just so open. And because we're often only playing with one pivot, whether that's Fernandes or at times in this game, Amrabat, and we were literally a 2-1 shape, the problem is, all it takes is for someone like Kluivert, let's say the midfield's a little bit deeper, someone like Kluivert to drop deep, pick up the ball, and run across the pitch. Rather than running in a straight line, if he runs across the pitch, he takes the solo midfielder with him, and the spaces it now leaves is just ridiculous. Now, of course, we've got to give credit to Bournemouth. I thought Chrissy was brilliant. I thought Cook was brilliant. And Solanke gave the player of the month a real battle. I thought Maguire was still good and actually single-handedly stopped a lot of counter-attacks. It would have been more goals without him. But he did struggle against Solanke. Solanke had a really good game, and I thought he was absolutely brilliant. He has been all season, and he was a real thorn in the side of United. The problem that United have got with their structure, right, is when you leave a lot of space, you're leaving a lot of individual battles. And in a game where United lost the individual battles, you've then got a problem. Now, I'm not saying United lost the individual battles due to lack of work rate. I don't think that was the case. United worked hard in this game. Anthony covered a lot of ground. Garnacho covered a lot of ground. Bruno Fernandes, Amrabat, Maguire. These players were running for their manager. It wasn't a case of not playing for the manager. These guys did work hard. You could see it. They were knackered by the end of the game. But tactically, they were not put in a system where they could go on and win this. Now, okay, maybe that's not quite right. Let me reword that. They weren't put in a system where they can control the game and reduce the risk. They could still win this game 3-1. If Dalot makes a good decision, a couple of good set pieces, of course you can still win the game. But when you play a system like this, which is so open and so reliant on individuals winning little battles, when you play that system, you are sacrificing control, and you're always just giving the opposition a chance that they might have something. You're just giving them that window of opportunity that every time we lose the ball, Bournemouth will go on an attack. And when you play in a league like the Premier League, even the worst teams in the league have a lot of quality in the way that they play football. There's a lot of good attacking talent. Again, Solanke, Kluivert, these are good footballers. And Bournemouth are a good side. And when you sacrifice that control, and you give Bournemouth space to attack on a regular basis, and we've got Luke Shaw playing really badly, Amrabat desperately trying to cover an entire midfield by himself at times, both in and out of possession, and then Maguire's going 1-1 against Solanke, which was a good battle. I thought they both done well. You're just leaving far too many spaces, time and time and time again. And that's why I do look at Erik Ten Hag. Again, I think certain individuals were poor, and that's harsh on Ten Hag. Dalot, poor. Shaw, really bad. Reguilon, poor control, poor first touch, things like that. Bruno Fernandes had a bad game. Scott McTominay had a bad game. However, at the same time, I personally don't think individuals was the problem. I think the system was that bad that created a problem for the individuals. So where am I going with this video? I'm not really sure. For me, I think this is, people were looking for who to blame for this game, which shouldn't always be the way anyway, but I think people are. I think Ten Hag is right up there. I think a lot of these players were poor, but I think Ten Hag set them up ultimately for failure. I feel like United in this system had to be perfect to win, and we've seen this United side this season are not very often perfect, and that led to a 3-0 defeat. 3-0 did perhaps flatter Bournemouth a little bit. United did have chances from corners. We started the second half well, put pressure on them, but in general, it just wasn't really an acceptable performance. And I think the other thing you have to question Ten Hag with a little bit is when you concede 3 goals in your box, and we've got Rafael Varane, one of the best box defenders in the world, on the bench, you do have to question it a little bit. Especially when the whole idea is that we've got him on the bench because he's not good at passing. The whole team isn't good at passing. I don't know, it leaves questions. I don't really want to go any further with this video because I don't think there's much to say. I feel like this is a repeat of what I've said so many times this season. The players individually weren't good enough and are daft to make bad decisions, but also tactically they're not put in a good structure where they can excel. I mean, at least they worked hard, that's the bare minimum, but yeah, I'm finished there for today's video because I don't know what else to say. It's just repeating the same thing over and over again. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. Enjoyed probably isn't the word, but I hope you watched the video till the end. We are finished for today, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.